Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 83 with Elisa Pangsaeng. This is an awesome conversation that we had. We talked about so many things, including how she got involved in music production and later mastering, her approach to mastering, what to look for in monitors, why she doesn't usually reference while mixing and mastering, and how mastering has actually improved other aspects of the production process for her. So I think you're going to love this conversation. We really talk about a lot of stuff. So let's get into it. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Elisa Pangsaeng. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Elisa Pangsaeng. Elisa is a Canadian audio engineer. She cut her teeth making records in Vancouver, recording, writing, producing, and mixing while working out of several of the city's busiest studios. Elisa currently produces music out of Monarch Studios and joined CPS Mastering in 2018. Former guest of the show, Braden Rangno, recommended I reach out to Elisa, who has graciously agreed to join us on the air. So welcome to Secret Sonics, Elisa.
Hey, Ben. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for taking time to do this.
Yeah, really excited to chat and get to know you a bit. And thanks, Braden, for the recommendation.
Yeah, totally. How are you doing? It's these days are wild.
They're pretty wild. Yeah, just taking it day by day, adapting, trying to stay busy. That's fortunately, mastering's a pretty solo gig anyway, for the most part. So that's been able, I've been able to keep going with that. And just trucking along. Things are pretty good.
Yeah. Nothing else you can do, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just got to keep on.
Keep on keeping on. So tell us a bit about your story. Who are you? When did music begin for you, and how did that turn into music production? Give us the lowdown.
Yeah. I feel like everybody who works in music is just obsessed with music. And so that's how it all started. I feel like some of my earliest music experiences were like recording, like the top 7 at 7 off of Z95.3, which is a local radio station, onto like a cassette kind of thing. So I could play them back and just getting like really, just getting so amped on like hearing my favorite songs. And then eventually that turned into, you become, when you're really young, you just kind of hear songs you like and you don't really think too much about it. You're just like, oh, I like this one. And then you start to, latch on to certain artists and certain scenes. And so it kind of started with just, gravitating towards music. And that became pretty obsessive, like I mentioned, recording songs off the radio and listening to them over and over and over again. I'm going to date myself. Sweet. I think I was going into high school when Napster, like overnight, you had to save up several allowances to buy one CD. And then overnight, you could literally download every single piece of recorded anything, including live catalogs. Like, it was nuts. So my music world just like exploded overnight one day at a pretty key time, I want to say.
Sounds like we're of the same generation.
Yeah. I feel like quite a few people have that experience where music just blew my mind, and I just, listened to it nonstop. It was my safe place. It was my happy place. It was my sad place. It was my everything place. Small hang up with, right. Like, so, okay, actually, sorry. Let me take it back a little bit. I love writing both in I loved writing fiction. I liked writing poetry, and that kind of naturally evolved into writing songs. But I was very, and still am, a pretty socially anxious kid. So performing was never, I think I always knew performing was not in the cards. It was like, music was like a private therapeutic thing almost. And I, again, like just super obsessed with it, right? It was not so much like, hey, I want to go out and like sing and perform and do all that stuff. It was just, I needed a way to focus and obsess over music. And it turns out there's a career for that. So that's, just kind of, I'm not even really sure how it came about. My friends were in bands or whatever. They got like M-boxes, which was I don't even know if people know what Mboxes are anymore, but it's like,
oh yeah,
when Pro Tools was linked to hardware, you had to buy this like little like cheap 2-channel or 4-channel interface thing. So we had one of those. I don't think anyone knew how to use it in retrospect. But it just started like becoming, that sort of technology and that sort of idea just was around. I had family friends who were fairly prominent recording engineers. I hadn't really noticed that growing up, but it turns out when I was ready and interested, they were there for me in that way. And just, I got some books. I started looking around at local studios, and that eventually turned into interning at those studios. I once actually got into a studio. I was actually watching my first engineer-producer duo work together, and how they work together, and we're just sort of like this fluid entity, and how freaking good they were at Pro Tools. It was nuts. Like, I feel like it would blow the average person's mind if you could see what happens to like a modern vocal recording on any given day. But as someone like just so eager and so interested in how this process, in everything about the process, to see it happening live fortunately I was able to see it happen at a very high level. I was just like floored. I was like, I have to be able to do this. I have to know how to do this. I have to be able to, move that quickly and work that fluidly with someone. And I'm covering a lot of ground very quickly here.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so it started with an obsession.
That was like your aha moment of like, you're in the studio and you're seeing what could actually be accomplished and what like, the flow state is and what that like, level of proficiency is. And I guess that was like your moment of like, oh, this is it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I had actually interned a few times before. Man, the first time I interned in a studio was hilarious. I was so terrified and I had no idea what to do. Like I read that, I'm going to get his name wrong. The engineer handbook. Tim.
Is that Osinski maybe?
No, it's Tim. I think it's Tim Critch, but I feel like it's not actually pronounced that way, which is my bad. Sorry.
We'll have to Google it afterwards.
Yeah, cool. Nice. You can edit that part out, right? That's fun.
We'll just pop it in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect. Anyway, there's like this assistant engineer's handbook, that a lot of people sort of kick around as like a starting point for studio etiquette and just like where your priorities should lie. And, I don't know, things like how to label gear, how to get coffee, and how to just basically be useful. So I got that and I started, reading the first few chapters. Beyond that, if you've never actually been trained, it's a lot to digest, but there's some really quality like basics. So I studied that like crazy. And then the first time I actually went in to apply it, I was terrified. I think I just like sat in a corner and like shakily handed someone a cup of coffee, and that's all I did all week. And then they never called me back, and it was still awesome.
Nice.
But I don't even remember where I was going with that. But right. So by the time I landed in that situation where I was able to watch that engineer and producer duo do their thing, I was very ready. And yeah, it was an absolutely like, it was the moment for sure. I was like, yeah, this has got to be me. I have to do this. I need to know how to do this like as quickly as possible.
That's awesome, and it's cool that you had a connection that got you through the door to even get that first internship.
Insanely fortunate, yeah.
I feel like I don't know. I probably started a little later than you because I was doing more like musician stuff before I got into audio engineering. Mm-hmm. But by the time I was trying to get into audio engineering, it was like there was like nothing. I ended up getting an internship, but like I wasn't doing a ton of stuff in that internship. But like
yeah.
There was like very little available. There was like nothing happening,
Yeah, I feel like I was right on the cusp.
Yeah, you got in at the right time.
Yeah, or I mean, there's always time. I feel like but it was a really interesting time because so I did all my sort of interning and running. It's like a PA job for audio. It's the entry level position for anyone who doesn't know. So I did all that, and then I realized very quickly, like, I I needed to just like get my hands on things a lot faster than waiting for people to, either quit or retire or all that. So I decided to go to audio school. And when I went into audio school, it was like CDs were at their peak. Guitar music was like ruled the world. And then in that like year, maybe year and a half-ish, but basically it felt like as soon as I got out of audio school, everything had changed. It was all about programming and, your skills in, I don't even remember what the virtual instruments of the virtual instruments, but it wasn't like Ableton wasn't even like a huge thing at the time.
It was probably like Cakewalk or something.
Actually, there was a lot of that kicking around. But I didn't even, at the time, I had no clue. All I knew was it was no longer
like
guitars.
you were like learning consoles and stuff, right? You were doing like analog full on.
Yeah, totally. Which is still that's never really going away. But it's crazy how much the skill set changed even within a year, and how much music changed even within a year of just studying it and training to work in it. It's very interesting. And then, after that, this sort of traditional studio setup wasn't really the same for a number of reasons. And I don't think that's a bad thing personally at all. I love where music is and is going, and just how that whole recording landscape has changed. I think it pushes everybody to be better. There's no one trajectory either, like it doesn't necessarily have to be, I started as a runner and then I moved up to assistant and I, started engineering and producing, and it was for this one record label and we do work with these, like it used to be pretty rigid, I feel like. And if you didn't literally or physically go knock on someone's door to like get in the door, it didn't happen. But that's not the case anymore. You can come at it from a million different angles. And I love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. I do feel like it's harder to break through because there's so much noise. Like,
fair, yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like because the playing field has been leveled, right? So now everyone has a chance.
Totally.
So I guess it's maybe a little harder to rise to the top. But those who persist succeed,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did you evolve at this stage? Did your story change?
No, it just kind of continued. I think like one of my favorite parts about doing this is that the learning curve is endless. You never really like arrive at a point where you're like, okay, I've done it, like you can always learn. And if you feel like if I feel like I'm starting to get a little too comfortable, I can pivot even ever so slightly within what I do, even just under the umbrella of audio engineering or music production, if you will, and sort of open up a whole new can of worms at any given moment. So it was just kind of one of those things. What was it? So I started working at the audio school that I went to, it just like in an administrative role, just to sort of like pay some bills, because I was basically living at that audio school. I was there so much. So I was like, may as well get some of my money back here. And so I got to meet a lot of students, obviously, outside of my graduating class. And one of them was really obsessed with, I think he was probably working in contact or something like that, but really all over music programming. And it was sort of the first time I had seen someone delve into that, and he was doing so like to emulate acoustic instruments, which I guess was a little more, it was easier for me to sort of break down and understand at the time. I had just focused all of my energy for the last few years recording, like I can now record a drum kit, or at least I thought at the time, relatively free of error. And then just to see how this person was able to program something that sounded pretty much identical or even better, probably sounded better than my early days of drum recording, honestly. It was another one of those moments where I was like, okay, this is a thing that I need to learn how to do. So, and I had a few friends who were like super into electronic music and all that. So I don't know, it just felt like, okay, we keep learning, like that audio school is done, cool. And now we focus on the next thing, whatever that is. In the learning curve.
The technology demanded your attention,
Yeah, exactly.
So cool. So should we